Welcome to Idle Red Hands Weekly. I'm Jeremy.
I'm Chris.
And this week on the Weekly, the author of Kingkiller Chronicles, Playing in His World, Mile High Comics responds to DC, 9th edition 40k core rules released, and The Bitter Reach released at retail. So how's it going?
Yeah, all right. It's funny, when you said 9th edition, my brain first went to, we're jumping to that for D&D. And then you said core rules. I'm like, oh, right. Warhammer 40k. Yeah.
Right. Similar to what they did with 8th edition, they're giving away the core rules for free.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
The reason I think they did that is because they basically had just an 8-page pamphlet of 8th edition rules. But this version is actually a lot more involved. There's a lot of rules changes that they need to specify. And so they went from 8 pages to 26 of for the PDF. So it goes through, it's well organized, and they've got kind of bullet points at the end to kind of remind you, like, everything that you read and that's all the flavor and all the details, this is what you need to keep in mind. So I think they do a good job for like people new to those rules.
Is that who you think that product is aimed at? Is it more towards new people or existing people who need to kind of be updated to the rules changes?
Because is it a lot? It's a lot more daunting than that little fold out that they put in every single box before. Probably is for people that immediately want to see those changes. I was really convinced, though, that they're going to make everybody buy that box set to get the rules. But they're discussing before. Or at least like wait until after that release. They gave them away for free, and I think maybe because they were doing a thing where they were kind of leaking. Oh, and this change and this change. So getting people excited about. So how's that synergy going to work, and what does that mean for this? And so now that the rules are out, it's not completely everything. I think it's actually like 48 pages of rules in the core book, but this is kind of a condensed version.
Now, I actually didn't know they put out a free version of the 8th edition rules prior to this, and I'll have to go look at the free 9th edition rules just because it's free, and I kind of want to see what's changed and what's different. I am absolutely not buying anything from Games Workshop for 40k. They already got some of my money for that Wrath and Glory and Age of Sigmar books from Cubicle 7. I cannot do miniatures games.
Oh, we're doing a lunchtime Warhammer. We're doing a patrol.
Good luck with that. Let me know how it goes, and let me know, like, is it a lunch hour or like a lunch day? Because that's what I want to know.
All right. So what have you been up to?
Apart from watching that real sucky Alita Battle Angel movie and complaining about it on Twitter, last Friday I ran a Hollow Earth game for our group after about, 4 months of not seeing each other for quarantine. And then that past Sunday, I ran a Dungeon World game for the Kansai International, or the Kansai branch of Japan International Gamers Guild, which again just kind of came back from hiatus. Who knows how long that's going to last, since Tokyo just hit day 2 of 100+ cases. Not as bad as the States, where we're up to like God knows what, but be prepared for another state of emergency and stuff to go on lockdown again. Anyway, those games went pretty well, and as much as I enjoyed running Hollow Earth Expedition, the game of Dungeon World reminded me how I'm pretty clearly more powered by the apocalypse than more traditional games.
So you're considering yourself like genetically powered by the apocalypse now?
Yes, genetically powered by the apocalypse. Yeah. How about you?
I just posted an unboxing for The Bitter Reach. That was just released on retail. So The Bitter Reach is the giant expansion for Forbidden Lands. So Forbidden Lands had a campaign book that was included in that original release. My Kickstarter pledge came like the day before the retail release. But I think a lot of stuff that ships out of Europe happens that way. But The Bitter Reach is an epic campaign for Forbidden Lands, and it's describing the icy northern wastes. So Forbidden Lands is kind of surrounded, the Ravenlands of the original setting is surrounded by mountains, and there's only hidden passages that get you from land to land. And so as they do each expansion, first they're going to do a frozen north, and then they may go back
burning south.
Yeah, right. Or they may go back to the islands across the sea, because that's where the original settlers came from. But this expansion includes 2 new magic disciplines, so elemental magic and ice affinity, a new champion profession, expanded travel rules for snow, cold, and fuel, like you would assume. So more survival mechanics, including 40 new random encounters, 8 new monsters, Frost Dragons, Ice Giant, Wendigo. The Wake of the Winter King is the name of the campaign. So it includes 8 key players who all seek to dominate the riches hidden beneath the Bitter Reach. And so if you don't know Forbidden Lands, you use kind of a hex map to show the entire land. And so there's random encounters and also like adventure sites.
It's a hex crawl.
Each campaign can be different because adventure sites can be just kind of located wherever kind of story-wise or thematically it works. Maybe needs to be by a river or needs to be at a cave entrance or something. So each game can be different. They give you a 2-sided hex map so you can actually like put decals on the map. And it did seem like when I unboxed Bitter Reach that they did a coating on this map. So maybe the decals you can peel them off or at least mark on the map itself. It had a very different surface that felt a little more resistant.
Cool.
And of course, you need the original Forbidden Lands core set to play this new setting, and they did a second printing of it. So it was sold out. The first printing was sold out. It was available digitally. So they did errata and spelling corrections and little typos and things that existed in the first printing.
Oh, nice.
Can't wait to get into that a little bit more. We're going to read through the new additions to some of the mechanics and the magic and everything, and do a kind of a mini review of what has been added to Forbidden Lands for this setting. We did a really extensive, almost like 2-hour Forbidden Lands review when it originally came out. So look forward to that. Oh, something odd that I saw. This is a podcast.
Uh-huh.
The author of the Kingkiller Chronicles. I don't know if you've read Patrick Rothfuss.
I have not.
He's working on the third book of the Kingkiller Chronicles, something that came out. So people are eagerly awaiting this third book. And so as soon as any news about him comes out, they're like, The Doors of Stone is being released. But no,
nerds being
not.
Nerds. Okay, yeah.
It's not. He is actually developing with James D'Amato a RPG setting.
Okay.
I guess maybe it's a system and a setting. I didn't hear any details about the setting on the OneShot podcast. They're going to be doing a playthrough, maybe kind of a play test of the rules and the setting that they're developing based in his world. In the Name of the Wind, the first book of the Kingkiller Chronicles, there is the university's Arcanum, which is...
College of Wizards.
Yes, right. And so setting the story for this RPG is 4 students in the university's Arcanum get unlucky draws for their tuition interviews with the masters and have to reckon with the possibilities of taking a semester off. They name the characters and who's playing them, and actually, so it's the author, B. Zelda, Satine Phoenix, and Liz Anderson. So maybe some kind of recognizable names in actual plays with D&D and those sorts of things. I started to listen to one of the episodes kind of introducing this, and James D'Amato is an improv student. I mean, he's obviously a game designer and interested in role-playing, but does the AM radio voice and like really, it just turned me off a little bit how much energy was in his voice. And I mean, obviously you can criticize me for kind of a slow, droning, uninteresting way that I talk. If there's too much energy in it, sometimes it's just too much to listen to.
Is it Critical Role-esque what I mean by that is we've discussed before how there are some podcasts that are more like people playing the game.
Right.
And some podcasts, or I guess actual play podcasts, that are more like a radio drama. Which side of that spectrum do you think this falls on?
I imagine it's going to be more playing the game because they're developing the setting and everything. And the people here aren't voice actors, I don't think. I think they're established role players, and they've worked for Wizards and done streams in different places. But he is an improv guy and proudly states that in the bio. So I was a little, but obviously, they met, they have a relationship, and he had the OneShot podcast. And then they decided to do this playthrough on the podcast. Rothfuss has an interesting quote. He says, "Telling stories like this will give me a chance to show off corners of my world that don't appear in my novels. So it's playful and collaborative in a way that I really miss. So most importantly, these are stories that will let people spend time in my world sooner rather than later, while they're waiting for the next book to come out."
This is like every antagonistic GM's wet dream, right? Talking about all the stuff that I created and it's mine, and I get to show you, and you'll get to explore my world, and like I don't know, that is very much not my GMing style. And I wonder if playing a game with an author of a series like this, the author has created all this stuff, them running a game.
I think D'Amato's running the game. So
either way, like, could you imagine having like the author of a setting sitting in a player's chair? Like, I am sure they're not going to be antagonistic and be like, oh, well, that's wrong, or all this stuff. But like what I've said before about how I kind of can't run historical games or games with lots of canon, I just have to ignore it because I worry too much about being correct, which for me is a problem. I wonder if the same thing would happen here.
I'm curious. And I think it just depends on Rothfuss' kind of disposition. And I think as an author, if he really is kind of open to new things happening in this world that he hasn't written, how the players react to things might be creatively inspiring. I think there could be...
Look for that fourth book based on this podcast campaign, right?
Right. So it's interesting. And there's been a weird relationship, like The Expanse.
Okay.
So the sci-fi book series The Expanse is a pen name, a single author pen name, but it's actually 2 writers, and they developed the story and the characters and everything through role play.
That's what I heard.
There's an interesting relationship that's happened more recently, and I think George R.R. Martin, he extensively, like, he has a series of books that are based on like a superhero kind of role play session that they did. Okay. So I think they're experimenting with that and just seeing what's actually there, and then at the end of this, they're going to have a product and a setting to sell for people that enjoy his work. So we will see. That really stood out to me, and we will see. But I'm not a big fan of the kind of presentation of OneShot. But there's a huge range of how people present actual plays, and I didn't hear any actual play. It was just an episode. It was an episode of the regular podcast. If you like the Kingkiller Chronicles, definitely take a look for that, because you're going to get more of that setting than you've ever had before. We talked about DC dumping Diamond.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. And Mile High Comics, based in Denver, Colorado. And if you've never been there, that's an amazing comic place. And you definitely have seen an ad by Mile High Comics, because they were one of the first brick and mortar stores to do a really heavy mail order service, mail order business. And so they always published lists and giant, like, entire page ads in Marvel Comics and I think DC Comics as well.
So correction, if you read comics, you've seen an advertisement from Mile High Comics.
Right.
Okay, because I certainly have not.
Right. And they would have to be paper, they had floppy comics with actual ads in them instead of digital ones where you just skip everything. Chuck Rosenkowski, the owner of Mile High Comics, had a really negative response to DC doing this.
Okay.
Basically, I think he's got a column, or he's got some place where he publishes, maybe either on the website or in one of the comics, like Comics Journal, or one of the business kind of more industry-based magazines. But he was really unhappy with this and said, as Diamond is trying to recover, they're basically being stabbed in the back, and this loss of business is going to be really, really severe and really kind of hamper the recovery of the industry. And kind of blaming it on AT&T's acquisition of Time Warner. So DC is owned by Time Warner. They were recently acquired by AT&T. The pandemic kind of hit and shut down a lot of their businesses. And since they're in the red for this purchase, he said that they're just trying to find any way to squeeze money out of this thing that they bought. So he's saying it's really kind of negative, kind of cutthroat corporate maneuvering, not thinking about how this is actually going to affect the business, as well as, although the retailers that are still hanging in there. I mean, some of them have had to give up during this time. I won't go into so much of the detail, but then his negativity comes through when he, at the end, plugs a 50% off sale using the code word DC sucks.
Wow. Okay. I was expecting a bit more subtlety, but all right.
And so the industry reacted to that pretty strongly. Some other people released and said, he had, I think, a personal relationship with the owner of Diamond, and Diamond had helped them through some hard times. I mean, they have existed, I think, from the 70s or 80s, Mile High. So they've been around for a long time and weathered some really bad periods of that industry. So he was very negative about it. And I'm going to take an opportunity to plug something. Okay. So I'm kind of editor, webmaster at rcharvey.com. And R.C. Harvey is a writer of the comics industry. And he did a really nice job of presenting this whole argument, posting everybody's letters and everything that they've written about this. So if you want to see kind of how the whole thing played out, how the other industry, the store owners and other people in the industry reacted to this very angry, reaction to DC and Diamond, visit rcharvey.com. So I'll do a free login so you can take a look at this website. He posts twice a month these really long articles about everything in the comic industry and also, politics and things. Everything kind of, bleeds into what's going on in comics. I'll post a username and a password in the description info text of this video or podcast, or whichever you're listening to. And you can take a look at that site. I think it's really worth checking out and to read the actual words of these people kind of and their frustrations going through this, and also, kind of what a more reasoned response would be.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah,
like being on the outside of comics and having discussed this before, I guess the thing I thought about most was, it seems like a good idea that Diamond doesn't have a near monopoly on the distribution of comics. So I would be interested in reading a rebuttal and how this would affect the industry, because I don't know what that would be. You
can use that password. So anybody that's listening to this, so all Idle Red Hands listeners and viewers, please use that password and take a look at that site, because there's 18 years. We've been doing this for 18 years. And so there's a huge archive of amazing writing about comics and everything. And he's basically published kind of the text that a lot of universities use for the history of cartooning, history of comic books. R.C. Harvey is definitely a well-established writer and historian, and his writing style is really fun. He's really playful and really fun to read. So take a look at that link at rcharvey.com. Get kind of the whole picture of what's going on in the industry.
Interesting. So we were talking about the DMs Guild yanking a product.
Right.
So I guess I have a fair amount of the information and just give like a high-level overview. I think what happened recently is a fairly prolific author on the DMs Guild, Oliver Clegg, published a product called Curse of Hearts. I think it was a series of templates to make monsters or characters in 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons vampires. It got yanked from the DMs Guild site, and I think fairly short, within like a day or two, which caused, at least in the circles I follow on Twitter, a pretty big outcry of hypocrisy on the DMs Guild and One Bookshelf, I guess, management in particular. As far as I can tell, what happened is the presentation and the artwork for Curse of Hearts was clearly gay, where it imagined like pinup girls, but just replaced that with guys.
Right.
So you had like, I think the cover was playing on Strahd, where you kind of had like this vampire in a leather harness sprawled on a throne. Some of the other interior pieces of artwork were kind of similar. And the claim was this artwork was not family friendly. And I believe the author had to censor some of the images, or that was the initial deal. Like modify these or censor these, and then we'll put them up again. It still got taken down. And a lot of, well, from my perspective, a lot of people were angry at the, I guess, double standard that One Bookshelf had, because there have been threads of products that are available for sale on the DMs Guild where women are presented in very similar ways to the men that were presented in this product. And why is that okay? And I think I explained that pretty poorly, but hopefully people were picking up what I was saying.
And you also mentioned that anything posted on the DMs Guild, it's an exclusive deal, so that if it's taken down, you don't have the right to post it anywhere else.
That's the sense I'm getting. Like other people have, I don't speak legalese, other people have broken down the agreement you have to sign to publish anything on there. But I believe the author said something along the lines of this is now dead. I think they work something out where they'll be able to publish it somewhere else. But generally speaking, I think to publish stuff on the DMs Guild, and I asked people why they would want to do this afterwards. Basically, you are allowed to use a number of official D&D 5e settings. I think it's like Eberron, Forgotten Realms, something else. I can't keep them all straight. You are also allowed to use provided artwork and template and like art assets. You're allowed to use their intellectual property like Beholder, Illithid, and all that kind of stuff. You're allowed to republish rules. The flip side of that is DMs Guild and WotC, by extension, kind of then owns your work.
Right.
And to the point you said, I think that kind of means you are prevented from publishing it elsewhere, which from an IP, makes sense.
Right.
People have to protect their IP. And One Bookshelf and DMs Guild is a company, right? They're privately owned company, so they are very much allowed to say what is and is not publishable on their site for whatever reason.
Yeah.
This just highlighted kind of the double standard and the amount of hypocrisy that was going on. Where it's like, if this got pulled only because it's guys in bikinis, why are all these other kind of suggestively posed, half-naked women on the covers acceptable if you're going to claim you want family-friendly content?
Right. Yeah, that's got to be the difficulty. I mean, the temptation to want to play in familiar settings and have very, legitimate looking materials, like save yourself a lot of art asset purchases and things to produce stuff. And you get a huge platform. You get the most popular, the world's greatest role-playing game, access to that whole audience, but you have to play by those rules. And especially if they're not clear, that's the frustrating thing that I think everybody's feeling in, social media, any creators posting on YouTube or even, Twitch and all these things. Okay, what are the rules? Like, can we please clarify? Can we not generalize and say family friendly? Okay, so what exactly does that mean? That's I think a big frustration for people wanting to have access to bigger audiences on popular platforms and then having to suffer the censoring or the ambiguous decision making.
So I think the DMs Guild put something out, like a statement out today along the lines of, thank you for bring this up, and we're going to take steps to look into this. And again, kind of like we discussed before about like diversity and all this stuff, like it seemed a very boilerplate kind of stuff where they had to do it. It seemed like there were a lot of people under that post saying, oh, thank you, great, this is great, and my feeling was they didn't really do all that much. I mean, I'm not saying they didn't, right? And I'm not saying they won't, but it kind of seemed like people were congratulating the DMs Guild for taking this step when we hadn't really seen much action, and it kind of felt like a lot of people just felt relieved that they could buy DMs Guild stuff guilt-free. is the feeling I got, right?
No, that's a good point.
Here's this token gesture that the DMs Guild has taken. And again, I hope they follow through, and I hope things get clarified and this kind of gets better. But it was enough for, I'm sure, a lot of people to say, oh, great, I don't feel guilty about buying from them anymore. But you're right. The DMs Guild, if this gets taken down, you'll know exactly why. DMs Guild feels kind of predatory a little bit to me, where I believe they take like 50% of whatever you make, but it's more as you said, Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition is by any margin the most popular role-playing game out there. The DM's Guild is pretty much the only place you can publish material, and understandably so if you want to use IP and stuff like that. But it kind of feels a bit predatory where they're taking so much of a cut. And I think kind of like the way capitalism works, I think a couple products a year or whatever, if they get high enough sales, are turned into physical copies, or there's a clause that says, hey, if Wizards likes your stuff well enough, it might get incorporated into other books. So I kind of feel like they're preying on designers and creators like of hopes and dreams of becoming big publishing names. So you kind of have to go through this site. You kind of have to use this. You don't have to use this material. You can use this material, but you're getting a real small cut for it, and you're probably not going to get noticed.
Right. Yeah, the same kind of exploitation as like unpaid internships. It's like, maybe MTV will hire me. Yeah.
That's the feeling I get from the DM's Guild. But I can kind of say that since I don't play D&D and don't see myself playing D&D or buying anything with DM's Guild in the future or submitting anything there. So take that all with a grain of salt.
I didn't want to bring, and we've had a couple of episodes of just kind of that constant negativity, so I didn't bring up any more WotC takedowns and censorings and things that they're doing, but it continues. Yeah, so Magic the Gathering artists and people, employees, and all kinds of wonderful stuff they're having to deal with. So something that I wanted to bring up, so we were discussing this a little bit on our Sunday group, and we're playing Swords and Wizardry, which is a kind of a original D&D
retro clone?
Yeah, kind of retro clone. Yeah, like a simplification. Yeah, retro clone is a good way to put it.
Which I kind of understand the appeal of now.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. And I think that the DM said, this, we really wanted to play authentically, but we can get enough of that authentic feel without the kind of what we're dealing with the rules. It's like, okay, what are you hitting with? Okay, what kind of armor is that? Okay, wait. I got it. Wait.
Well, I was thinking more like retro clones are like the open source version of D&D, where if you want to make your own content and all this stuff, you don't have to deal with all that WotC bullshit about going through DMs and stuff like that. So it's kind of like, it's older version, but it's kind of open source and we can do what we want with it.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway,
yeah, definitely. Yeah, so one of the players, the very interesting thing about this group is none of us are from the same country. It's a very diverse group, all men, all male. It's a really diverse group, so we have a lot of different perspectives that we're bringing to the table. And we were discussing a little bit of the censorship and what's going on with the pressure that Wizards of the Coast is feeling. And one of the players, Daniel, had a really excellent response. And this actually... He wrote this on the Facebook group, and I really wanted to share this because I think this hit me really, like this is kind of what I've been trying to express with my fears and the things that I don't like about what's happening with kind of old school RPGs and those fictional worlds. So Daniel wrote, "When fiction comes under attack, we lose spaces to escape, dream, and tell stories. It's a valuable outlet for playing out our values and explore the darker side of culture. Culture often has types and archetypes. If we destroy these imaginative worlds, we lose clear-cut villains like demons and devils. When that happens, it's hard to reinforce our own sense of ethics in the real world, which is blander and grayer. Fictional worlds give us an opportunity for us to feel satisfied about ideals we have."
Interesting. I'd like to have a discussion with this person because this kind of seems like a little bit in response to the we're removing evil races from D&D.
Yes, right.
Not that evil things are shown to be evil in the game setting or the fiction setting, but you're provided with all these examples of essentially the same people who have different moralities, and you avoid the problem of kind of the racial stereotypes or using, I guess, offensive language to describe fantasy characters that run into real world racism.
We should do like an expanded like evil races talk, I think, with the whole idleredhands. I think there's some really interesting stuff there because the origins of all of that thinking, I think, come from World War I and fairy tales. And there's
Gary Gygax and being kind of Ginny kind of
exactly.
or satanic panic,
or even
stuff.
Tolkien, even Tolkien's Christianity. No, I think there's a lot of interesting things there, and a lot of I think that would be a really rich discussion.
Potential. That discussion has the potential to end in a table flip.
Oh, yes, right. So we will videotape that discussion. But I'll put a link to Daniel's Instagram. And thank you so much, Daniel, for letting me use your quote. I thought that was really nice. So take a look at his Instagram and give him a follow. Okay, so where can people find you?
On Twitter, as always. That's Hivemind, HYVEMYND. And I am, against my better judgment, setting up a new blog.
Oh,
It's still under works, but I don't do the Patreon anymore. That was just too difficult to do. My blog was called like Fantastic Fate Resources, which kind of no longer fit what I was doing anymore. So I've just kind of collapsed stuff, and I'll provide a link down in the show notes. It's
one quick detail.
Yeah.
I don't know if you listened to the How to Play Star Wars discussion.
I did.
Did you hear the system that won, basically?
No, I didn't.
Fate.
Really?
Yeah, I think all of us kind of agreed. Yeah, I think the aspects would make it feel Star Wars.
Huh, interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
so yeah, just a little side note there. And I do a weekly single panel gag cartoon that I stream on Monday nights North American time. You can find that both on Twitch and YouTube, and follow the cartoon on Twitter at Abusecartoons. The website is abusecartoons.com, and the archive of all of the cartoons from the past couple of decades is gocomics.com/domestic abuse. If you'd like to get a hold of Idle Red Hands, please visit idleredhands.com. The podcast and posts of all of our videos are available there. You can follow the podcast on Twitter at Idle Red Hands. And if you'd like to get involved, please visit patreon.com/idleredhands. So that's it for this week. We will be back next week.
Later, mortals.
Bye.